Recently, I built a Targ Nar Demon Fang Gnoll deck. Now, this is pretty interesting. First of all, because Targ Nar is a pretty bad commander, which you might have noticed if you know the card. But secondly, because I built the deck in a pretty interesting way. Now, normally, when I build a deck, I just, go in Moxfield or whatever, and then put together a deck list while looking through Scryfall, looking through my collection, and looking through EDH Ring, right? But this time, I decided that I was going to do it like a different way. And it was somewhat similar to like when I first started playing Commander. I just wanted to like look at what cards I had in my collection and put a deck together from that. I didn't trade with anyone for these cards, it was only cards that were already in my collection. And I think it's pretty cool that you can actually build a deck, and this deck does actually function now. It's not the most powerful, it's probably like Dragon 2, but it can compete with precons. So I wanted to showcase this deck and the kind of cards I put in it, and kind of show you guys how you can build a deck with just the cards in your collection without having to trade for like anything whatsoever. And yeah, without further ado, I think I'll just get into the video, so let's go on with it. The first card that I wanted to mention in this deck is, of course, the commander himself, Targ Nar Demon Fang Gnoll. Targ Nar is a 2-mana 2/2 for 1 red mana and 1 green mana, and he has 2 separate abilities. The first ability is called Pack Tactics, and it says, whenever Targ Nar Demon Fang Gnoll attacks, if you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater in this combat, attacking creatures gets +1/+0 until end of turn. This is somewhat useful in a go wide strategy, where you can like pump up your board, but it isn't like the best option for go wide strategies, like whatsoever. Now his second ability is for 4 mana, you double Targ Nar's power and toughness until end of turn. This is the ability that I'll be building around, which means that I'll be going more like a Voltron style of gameplay, and his first ability also does kind of help with that, because you can give him +1 power at some point, which you then can double, which will then like ramp up to like be a good amount of more power, right? But it isn't like the most useful ability. The primary ability here is the secondary ability, where you double his power and toughness at the end of turn. Now, of course, there are a couple of glaring problems with building Targ Nar as your commander in a Voltron deck. The first one is that he doesn't really have any way to actually hit your opponents. They can just jump on him with a 1/1 bird or something like that. But again, you will have to facilitate this in your deck, so we have evasion and trample in the deck, so you can actually hit your opponents. The second one is that his ability, the one that costs 4 mana, doubles his power and toughness, but he's only at 2/2. This means that you'll have to spend like 16 mana for him to even like be able to hit someone for lethal command damage, which is without factoring in the trampling cost. So you want to pump him up before you like actually like start doubling his power and stuff, because otherwise you're just realistically not going to have that crazy amount of mana. So that's the second thing you need to build around with Targ Nar. You need to have a lot of mana open, and you need to be able to buff him up, and you need to be able to give him evasion. Moving on from Targ Nar, I want to actually like get into how we're gonna win the game, and the way we're gonna do that is through combat tricks, yeah, as well as removal, because we need to make sure that like our Targ Nar doesn't just suddenly become a legitimate business person. That would be horrible and completely ruin us. So we want a couple of removal spells as well. The first one I want to mention is Raise the Effigy. It lets me either destroy an artifact or give a creature +2/+2 until the end of turn. Very nice. Return to Nature and Heritage Reclamation do basically the exact same thing. It lets me either destroy an artifact, an enchantment, or in Return to Nature's case, exile a target card from a graveyard, or in Heritage Reclamation's case, exile a card from a graveyard and draw a card. So Heritage Reclamation is just like better, but yeah. Next card, Tameo Safekeeping. Target permanent gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. I also gain 2 life, which can be nice. Very good card. Then you have Origin of Metal Bending. It lets me either destroy an artifact or enchantment, or put a 1/1 counter on target creature control, and that creature gets indestructible until end of turn. So it both buffs up my creature, is a protection piece, and can be a removal piece. Very nice. Next card is probably like my favorite card in the deck, and that's Wild Shape. It lets Targ Nar basically either become a 1/3 turtle with hexproof, so it can be a protection piece, a 1/5 spider with reach, so it can also be like, if you want Targ Nar as a blocker for some reason, and it can also become a 3/3 elephant with trample. Very nice card, allows me to do a lot of different things, and this card is just really cool. The next card is probably like my second favorite card in the deck, and that's Ironhoof Boar, who sadly we will only be using his channel ability, which is basically just like for 2 mana at this card Ironhoof Boar, and target creature gets +3/+1 until trample until end of turn. Very good effect. Then we have Stolen Vitality, which is basically just the exact same effect, but it doesn't have a channel ability, it just costs 2 mana by default. Lunar Frenzy is a bit similar. It gives target creature +X/+0, as well as first strike and trample until end of turn. So potential to be bigger here, but again, very cool card. Might of the Meek doesn't give any attack bonus, but it does give trample and I draw a card, so that's nice. It replaces itself. Ancestral Anger is basically the same card, it just gives +1 attack as well, so a bit better. Biosynthetic Burst does basically everything I want in the deck. It gives a creature +1/+1 counter on it. It gives it reach, trample, indestructible, and I untap it for some reason, so that's nice. Again, like, just, it basically does everything. Very cool card. And the last card I want to mention in this category is Rubble Hulk, which is an elemental, but I'll only be using its Blood Rush ability, which is basically just channel in this case. For 3 mana, I discard Rubble Hulk, and then target attacking creature, you know, Targ Nar, gets +X, where X is the number of lands I control. And in this deck, which is first of all Gruul colors and needs a lot of mana, you might assume that I'm running a lot of ramp pieces in this deck, which in that case, you would be right. I'm running a lot of ramp pieces in this deck. So, Rubble Hulk can give Targ Nar a crazy boost in terms of, like, power and toughness, right? So, very cool card. Only downside is that it doesn't give him Trample, which would be nice. In that case, Rubble Hulk would be, like, probably the best card in the deck. But it does need some kind of card that gives Trample as well, to actually be, like, goated. But yeah, that's the first category, and we move on to the next category, which is actually kind of similar. And now, what do I mean when I say that these two categories are pretty similar? Well, the last category was instant and sorceries that gave like protection and make Targ Nar bigger and give him trample and stuff like that. And this is basically the exact same thing, only that this is permanent. So the first card I want to talk about is Swiftfoot Boots. You probably know what this does, but it gives equipped creature hexproof and haste. Then we have Hammerhand. It's an enchantment that gives equipped creature +1/+1 and haste. We have Boots of Speed as well. It gives the equipped creature +1/+0 and haste. Then we have the next 3 cards are like kind of similar, so I'll just take them in bulk basically. We have Sword of Vengeance, Hero's Heirloom, and Haunted Cloak. Now, what do these cards do? Well, basically, some of them give stats, like +2/+0, some of them give a lot of keywords, but the most important keywords that all of these gives are Trample and Haste. So yeah, that's basically what in the deck, Trample and Haste. Very nice. Then we have another card that's like pretty mid, to be honest, but it is pretty funny as well. It's Spike Grip, so for 3 mana, equipped creature gets +3/+3, it has equip cost 3, and whenever equipped creature attacks, you may sacrifice a forest. If you do, target creature gains trample that turn. Not target creature, that specific creature actually. And you might have noticed that this isn't really the best card, but it can be useful in a pinch, and it does actually do what it's supposed to. So, pretty cool card. Then we have Belt of Giant Strength, which is also a really funny card. The one main weakness of this is, of course, the fact that it doesn't give trample or any form of evasion. So even if your Targ Nar has base power and toughness 10/10, which this card does, he will only be able to like hit into a bird basically. So you need some other card to make this work as well. It's actually pretty similar to like the Rubble Hulk that I talked about earlier in that case. But yeah. Anyways, pretty cool card. It has equipped 10 of course, but it costs X less to activate, where X is the power of the target. So you can buff up Targ Nar on your earlier turn, swing at someone, and then equip the Belt of Giant Strength, like something you can just do. And yeah. Now, we've covered how we're going to like pump up Targ Nar a bit, right? Of course, we have like the combat tricks, we have some of the equipments that give power, and we have evasion through that and stuff like that, right? One small problem though, this isn't enough to kill someone with Targ Nar. We need to use his ability that costs 4 mana to activate, and you want to activate it several times during your turn, right? This basically means that you want to have a lot of mana. And now how are we going to get that mana? Well, through ramp. And I want to split it off in like basically 2 sections. The cards that I want to talk about, and then the cards that I don't want to talk about. So I'll just quickly list off all of the cards that I don't want to talk about. You can pause the video if there's something you find interesting and want to read. But yeah, first card, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Curse of Opulence, Explore, Farseek, Rampant Growth, the Weather Seed Treaty, Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, Harrow, Explosive Vegetation, Migration Path, Vastwood Surge, Hunting Wilds, Into the Wilds, Sakura Tribe Elder, Yavimir Elder, or Yavimaya, I suppose, Farhaven Elf, Springbloom Druid, and Tireless Permissioners. Now, these cards are all pretty good, and they basically just ramp you, and that's pretty much what they do. The other cards I wanted to talk about, though, are pretty more interesting in my opinion. We have Scaled Herbalist as well as Paducah Gardener, which basically just say that you can put a land, like you tap the creature and then you put a land from your hand onto the battlefield, which can be pretty cool. Like, these cards aren't great, but they're pretty cool, I think. Then we have World Shaper, which I have beef with. I'm genuinely thinking about cutting this card. Like, in theory, this card works pretty well in the deck, right? Whenever it attacks, you mill 3 cards, and then when it dies, you return all land cards from the graveyard to your battlefield. Really cool card. Slight problem though, I've played this card like 3 or 4 times, right? When I drew into it and stuff, while playing this deck, and he's just sucked every single time, because he gets to mill like 12 cards, and out of those like 12 cards, there's maybe like 1 land. And I don't know if I'm just drawing too late or something like that, but I've got him down on like turn 4 before. Or like even like turn 3. And he still just does nothing. Like, it's genuinely insane how little land I actually like mill with this guy. So yeah, pretty good card in theory, but I've been shafted by this guy many a times. So do be cautious of him. The next two cards I would want to mention is like pretty much like a combo. It's a pretty bad combo, but they are pretty fun. It's Abundance and Rowan. Now I'll read Abundance first. Basically, if you would draw a card, you can choose if you would rather draw a land or a non-land card. And then you flip cards from the top of the library, like you reveal them, until you reveal a card that's your chosen type. So for example, you flip until you reveal a land, and then boom, ooh, that's a basic forest, right? And then you draw that card. Now, Rowan says, reveal the first card you draw each turn. Whenever you reveal a basic land card this way, draw a card. So yeah, you can just, if you have both of them out on the same time, you can be like, with Abundance, okay, I want to draw a land. And then if you're lucky enough to draw a basic land, you can just be like, with Rowan, oh cool, I'll draw an extra card. Now, is this a good combo? Not really, but it is ramp and card draw, so it's not terrible. But it is pretty funny how they interact with each other, I think. The last card I want to mention in like the ramp section is Boundless Realms. Which basically Boundless Realms just like, it costs 7 mana, so it's a big spell. But you basically just search your library for X lands, or basic lands to be specific, where X is the amount of lands you control on the battlefield. So like, you just double your lands. And in a deck that already ramps a lot, as you might have inferred by the previous cards I mentioned, this will get you a lot of land. Really good card, and it helps you pump up your Targ Nar as well. So those are like the ramp cards, and this is like the biggest package in the deck basically, unless you count like the combat spells and like the equipment like in the same package. I think they're like about the same size probably. Heck, that might even still be like smaller. But yeah, overall, pretty cool ramp cards. At least some of them are. Others are just like ramp. That's fine. They don't all have to be exciting, you know. Yeah, on to the next section. Anyways, with all of that mana you want to spend in something, and of course, the prime target to spend mana it will pretty much always be Targ Nar, so you can double his power and toughness, assuming that you can kill somebody, right? Now, you won't always be able to do that, so instead you can spend it on other stuff in the deck, and that mostly boils down to like having board presence in your deck, or drawing more cards in your deck, because this deck does need a lot of card draw as well, because stuff like, you know, all of the like small 1 mana and 2 mana combat tricks can like empty out your hand pretty quickly, right? So, we have a bit more expensive cards like Hydras in the deck to help with that, like alleviate the problem. We have Voracious Hydra, it enters the battlefield with X1 on the counters on it, it has Trample, and when it enters, you either double the number of counters on it or it fights a creature to your control, so it's a creature removal spell basically. We have Steelbane Hydra, it enters with X1 on the counters on it, of course, and then you can remove a 1/1 counter for it to just run Artifact or Enchantment. And then we have Lifeblood Hydra, which basically it is like it enters with X1 on counters, typical Hydra stuff, right? And when it dies, you draw cards and gain life equal to its power. So also a pretty good card that helps you draw cards. In addition to that, we have some other cards that help you draw more cards, such as Bitter Work, which isn't the greatest in the deck, but it's pretty decent. Whenever a creature you control attacks with power 4 or greater, you draw a card, which can ramp up to be a lot of cards later on in the game. And then you can exhaust for 4 and Earthbend 4. But of course, this is only once you do this, right? Because it's exhaust, you can only do it once. Anyways, this card, Tireless Tracker, it has landfall, create a clue token, and basically clues allow you to sack them for 2 mana and then draw a card, which, you know, more card draw in the deck that makes more lands. Very cool. So we have Harmonize as well. For 4 mana you can draw 3 cards, pretty decent. We have Risk Card Expertise, you draw a card equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, and then you can cast a spell with mana worth 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Pretty cool card as well. It can hit stuff like Unnatural Growth for 5 mana. And thinking of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control in turn. Also very cool, this is an enchantment, but it does cost 4 green mana, so you do need to have the right mana to play this. We have Forgotten Ancient. Whenever a player casts a spell, you move put a 1/1 counter on Forgotten Ancient, and at the beginning of your upkeep, move any number of 1/1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures, which in most cases, these will be going directly onto Targ Nar, so it gets bigger. Can get Targ Nar very big, very nice card. We have also some of the like go wide strategy I mentioned earlier on, but again, this is more like just to like have some amount of board presence, and of course these will get stronger if you choose to attack with them with like Targ Nar or something, right? But again, this is mostly just so that you don't get fucked by not having any blockers. So, we have Avenger of Zendikar, which creates a 0/1 green plant token for each land you control, and then it has landfall, put a 1/1 counter on all of those plants. Very cool card. We have Nesting Dragon, which whenever a land enters, you create a 0/2 dragon, and then when that dies, you create a 2/2 dragon. Also pretty cool card. We have Krenko, the 10th Street Kingpin. Very cool card. The fun story about this card. I was playing a game a bit ago, right? And I drew 0 forests. Mind you, my deck has like basically double as many forests as it has mountains. So this was like really confusing. And it almost happened again the next game, which was like wild. But yeah, anyways. Kriko was pretty much the only card I got out, other than like, I think I got like a Swiftfoot Boots and some combat tricks out, and that was like it. So Kriko just got like really big to the point where like he was like a 10-10 or something like that, and people just couldn't block him. And I think it was like Swiftfoot Boots he had on him, so they couldn't just remove him either. He did eventually die because I got removed like as a player, because people just attacked me and I just died. But yeah, really cool card. Next card I want to talk about, and the last one for this category, is Aki Battle Squad. Also one of the absolute goats in this deck. It basically says whenever one of our modified creature control attack, untap all modified creature control, and then there's an additional combat phase. And this triggers only once each turn, right? Now, what is a modified creature? A modified creature is a creature that is either equipped, enchanted, or has counters on it. So, of course, we have a decent amount of equipment in the deck, but we also have a good amount of cards that like put 1/1 counters on creatures as well. Like we have the Hydra, as I mentioned earlier. We have stuff like, what's it called? We have the Forgotten Ancient as well, and some of the combat tricks put 1/1 counters on as well. So overall, a lot of the time, Aki Battle Squad will just like allow you to swing with Targ Nar twice in a turn, which can basically just mean that you can like kill 2 players on 1 turn, which is really strong. So yeah, pretty damn good card. Anyways, the last couple of cards that I wanted to mention are like the land base, and because I was only building with cards in my collection, it ended up being a pretty vague land base. But just hear me out here, right? First of all, we have 10 mountains in the deck, and we have 19 forests. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, almost double as many forests in the deck as mountains. Now, what are the other cards in the deck? Of course, I have Command Tower in the deck. I had an extra one of those lying around. I had Exotic Orchard. Temple of the False God is in the deck, because you need a lot of mana. So like, even if you get this out early, and you get kind of shafted by that, I still think it's worth it late game, right? Then we have stuff like Lighted Woodland, which is basically just a ramp spell. You can ramp with it, right? We have Rogue's Passage, which is an evasion spell. Then we have Buried Ruin, which can return an artifact card from your game to your hand. All really cool utility lands. Now we're getting into like a bit more janky stuff, right? So first of all, I run Growth of the Burn Willows, and the reason I won this is exclusively for mana phasing. I actually didn't really like this card. But like, it's fine. I just pulled this, so I had it lying around. I was like, sure, you can go in the deck. Then we have, that's the name, sure. So Kensai Crucible of Defiance. It's a legendary land with a channel ability that allows me to like create 2/1/1 colorless spirit tokens. It's like decent. Don't know what to say about this card. It's like just decent. And I had it lying around, so like sure. And then we have the cycling lands. Yeah, they instant the battlefield tapped, which already means they're actually like pretty bad. But I can cycle them for 1 green mana and 1 red mana respectively. Yeah, it's Forgotten Cave and Tranquil Frigate. So they do something. Honestly, a lot of the time drawing a mountain or like a forest is just objectively better, but like these are pretty cool, I suppose. Yeah, I decided to put them in the deck. Also because I needed like mana phasing, like being able to cycle a card if I already have enough forests might be worth something, I suppose, right? So yeah, those are the lands in the deck, and the mana base is pretty cooked, in all honesty. One of the like downsides of building with cards that are like only in your collection. But yeah, it is what it is, right? Now, I think that's pretty much the end of the video, but I do quickly want to mention a couple of things first. The first thing I want to mention is the fact that the deck has like the main strength of the deck, right? Is that it's like very resilient. And what do I mean by this? Well, basically, you all saw like the protection pieces that I ran the deck earlier, right? Like they give your commander indestructible or hexproof or something like that, right? But like other than that, even if your commander does get removed somehow, right? You can just play him again. Like the deck ramps like crazy. Like it doesn't matter if your commander costs 2 mana, if it costs 4 mana, if it costs 6 mana. Heck, you can even play him for like 8 mana, no problem, right? And like with the amount of protection spells in your deck, it's gonna be really hard to actually like remove your commander in any meaningful way other than just like delaying the inevitable, right? So of course, he is a removal target because he's a Voltron commander, but he won't be a removal target early on either. So you can just play him on turn 2, and you will always have a guaranteed blocker, which means that your opponents can't hit you early game either, even though you're just sitting there and ramping, because like you have a 2/2 blocker. It's a decently big creature, right? So yeah, overall a very good commander in like lower bracket tables. Of course, this deck falls off hard if you play like anything above bracket 2. I think it can still compete at bracket 3 tables, but you're probably gonna have a hard time winning. You might be able to knock a player or two out, but you're probably not gonna win. Bracket 4 tables, you're just cooked. You can't do shit at those tables, I think. And bracket 5 tables, no, doesn't work, right? But yeah, at lower bracket tables, this deck is really cool and really fun, really resilient. And if you want to learn to build decks like this, I actually made a video about deck building where you can like see some of the tips and tricks that I implemented in this deck while building it. Like having a clear and coherent game plan, you know, that's one of the tips. I'll spoil that from that video. And some of the tips I don't follow in that video, because like that video is more focused on like net decking, and when you're only building with like card in the collection, you can't, you know, follow your own tips 100% all of the time. So yeah, overall, this video was really fun to make, and I really like this deck as well. Like it's genuinely one of my favorite decks I've built in a long time, right? So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you, and yeah, go check out some of my other videos if you want to. And with that said, thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to, as well as, again, watch my other videos. Very important, guys. Don't forget. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.